Hey, Psych kids, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. I hope you enjoyed the work with the brain. I got some really good articles from many of you. Remember that the crux of this course, it's an elective course, and the whole idea in with this in online is just to get you to learn the stuff. And the best way to really learn the stuff is to watch these videos, which are really fun for me to make. Hence, all my little charts and stuff. Pause them and write down stuff. Take screenshots. I've also learned, as of this morning, I've conducted my first test Zoom session. So, I mean, obviously, I'm going to try and get, it'd be hard to do Psych, all 3 classes at one time on Zoom. So I'll probably do the classes one at a time. That's really just to get together and talk about some of the different stuff that we've had. And those are optional when I do. If you get an invite, it's optional. I'd love to hear from you and just hear about how life is going, because in psychology we're going to just kind of talk in those about how your life is going, what your coping mechanisms are. I mean, I know my family and I, we have a billion different coping mechanisms going on right now. I'm taking like 4-hour bike rides. It's crazy. Everybody's coping in their own different ways. And so the Zoom, I think, will be really helpful for that coping mechanism element. And just to talk and just to get together, that's the only real reason why I would have the Zoom. So don't think that if you miss it, you've missed valuable information. Is any information for me really valuable? That's yet to be determined. Some of you have done such a good job on your articles, it really kind of chokes me up to see you working so one or two of you, I'm not going to name, but you have just really kicked butt. One of you I even strongly recommend, one or two. Actually, there's a couple of you, but one in particular that should just make this become a psychiatrist. Anyway, get ready for another one of my amazing screenshots. And if you think I'm walking away unscathed on these drawings, Punchy, can you not come in here? The dog just opened the door. Hold on. Okay. You can be rest assured that I'm being made fun of for these at home, but take a screenshot of this. This is a synapse, and it is the primary means by which the neurons in the brain communicate. And if you take a look at this, and I'm going to try and look at it. If you take a look at this little diagram, we're moving into neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters. Okay, well, here they all, the primary neurotransmitters are listed. Okay, so we have your acetylcholine, your dopamine, okay, your serotonin, your norepinephrine, your GABA, and your glutamate. Okay, they communicate, neurons communicate through this synaptic space. Okay, if you take a look there, see those little, I guess they're little circles or whatever. So what happens is you have these synaptic vesicles, which are these little circles I pointed out. Okay, and this would be the neuron that is sending the message up here. Okay, so this is the neuron that is sending the message, and it is sending the message to a dendrite of a receptor or receiving neuron. Okay? And this is your synaptic space. That's how the cells communicate. They send these messages, okay, that are neurotransmitter based from the synaptic vesicles through the synaptic space into the dendrite of the receptor or receiving neuron. Okay, get a good shot of that. Okay. So why is this so important? Well, for the most part, this is the communication system of the brain. As we have, oh, and by the way, the sending neuron, I always like to look at the sending as the tail of a neuron, sending it to the head of a different neuron. That's how I've always looked at it. Remember it any way you want. But if you take a look at this, we look at this here, these neurotransmitters are responsible for really complex functions of the body. So if you take a look at acetylcholine, this is the transmitter that is responsible for your muscles and muscle recovery, learning, and memory. We go down to dopamine. I think you've all heard dopamine before. Dopamine and serotonin are two of the neurotransmitters that are manipulated by recreational, hallucinogenic, or non-hallucinogenic stimulant-based drugs. And when we get into the altered states of consciousness, this is, dopamine and serotonin receptors are very important to that. So if you take a look at the dopamine, movement, learning, attention, and emotion. Okay, so that emotion is going to be why some of the recreational or hallucinogenic drugs are profoundly impacting the dopamine receptors as an agonist. So I'll explain those terms when we get to the drugs. Serotonin, mood, again, hunger, sleep, arousal. Many of you have heard of SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which what they do, it is a antidepressant. It elevates the level of serotonin released, and then it blocks the reuptake. So when you're looking at, when you are looking at the synaptic vesicles, they are releasing neurotransmitters. Okay? Now, they will then pull that up after the message has been sent. So what an SSRI does is it is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, meaning it leaves more serotonin in your body so that your mood is elevated. As you see, mood is elevated. That is why one of the side effects of some of these is decreased sleep, because when you elevate levels of serotonin, you can affect the ability to sleep. Okay, norepinephrine is alertness, just your ability to focus, and glutamate is primarily for GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, which what that is doing is it is just stabilizing functions. And glutamate is very important to your memory. You can actually take glutamate. There's a good way to take glutamate and a bad way. Like MSG in Chinese food, is that you don't want too much glutamate, but there is a way to take it for memory, and I'm not sure how that works at all. I'm not in the world of advancements in terms of memory boosting stuff. I probably should be, for God's sake. Anyway, so let's take a look at acetylcholine. The issues arise with all of these, as I mentioned with this, the SSRIs. As I mentioned with drugs that DMT that elevate, that just flood your system with serotonin and dopamine. LSD also does the same thing. So there are issues with these that we kind of see every day. Something like acetylcholine is when we have drops in acetyl. I think yes, it's the deterioration of the ability to produce acetylcholine is a major cause or effect of Alzheimer's. I think it's an effect of Alzheimer's. Dopamine, if you have an excess of dopamine, you will kind of shake, dopamine. If you have too much dopamine, you can get schizophrenia. If you have too little dopamine, you can kind of get tremors and shake a bit. Too little serotonin, you can experience depression. That's why we have these selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And I'll keep this up. If you have too little GABA here, you can get seizures, you can get tremors, you can get insomnia, and the glutamate, if you have too much, it can be brain overstimulation, and it can cause seizures. People that have glutamate issues have to really be careful to avoid foods that have MSG in them. But a lot of these places are no longer putting monosodium glutamate in their food because of the effect it has. So just kind of to take a quick look at this again, just completing our biological basis of our psychology. This is our synaptic space in which these neurons are able to communicate with each other and send and relay the messages that are quintessential to our daily routines. Everything from your ability to relax, everything from your ability to maintain low blood pressure, your ability, you're hungry, your body is going to register lower levels of sugars and insulin, and it will immediately start sending messages. So these neurons are constantly communicating and enabling you to function without having to think about the functioning process. When you wake up in the morning, okay, if any of you have ever taken melatonin at night, melatonin is what occurs when it's dark, okay? And your body starts to produce melatonin. That puts you to sleep. You can take a melatonin pill, and it's been deemed okay by the FDA to help you sleep. The minute the sunlight hits your eyes, your body starts to release serotonin. So that's the wakefulness. So this is how this stuff happens all the time. This is, your body is monitoring sugars, your body is monitoring muscle impact. Okay? Endorphins are painkillers that are released by your body. That's what an endorphin high is. These endorphins are released. It's essentially like taking a painkiller. So individuals, I'm personally, if I don't get like some kind of a workout, I get a little depressed, a little funky. That's that endorphin element. So this is your body's chemical system, and this is how that chemical system works. There were some wonderful articles. A lot of the articles dealt with the amygdala and the propensity for violence that individuals with different sizes of different levels of development of the amygdala. Those are very, very interesting. elements of this biological component. We also, I spoke briefly about the teenage brain, and the most important stuff we are really learning about the teenage brain, particularly with males, is the lack of development of the prefrontal lobe. So I've seen some really good articles on these types of things. So keep it up. I'll probably assign an article on Wednesday, and I will try to at least get one class into a Zoom session and see how that goes, and just kind of chat about things. I want you to really be using some of the psychology that we're learning to work on how you're coping, to work on this existential crisis that we all find ourselves in. And I'm going to try and get into the breakdown and recovery component of psychology, so that we can kind of understand, because I know everybody's really stressed out, and I hope all of you are kind of starting to meditate a bit, and keeping your meditating and your breathing going. This is a great time to develop these things, times that are stressful like this. And remember, when you start to do stuff, if you are going to start to try and manipulate the biology, that's what you're doing. You're creating new neural pathways, and those new neural pathways are enabling you to relax a bit. And that's done through, as we've talked about, transcendental meditation, or, psilocybin, or, maybe you got yourself involved in a Johns Hopkins stress and anxiety study. Great, write a paper about it and I'll give you an A. But work on these things during this time, work on these coping mechanisms, work on this biological part, that meditative part, and activating your own activation of serotonin levels. You'll see this, you can see this when you hear good, beautiful music that you love. You can feel the dopamine and serotonin levels elevating. Anyway, keep doing good work. I'll get an article assigned on Wednesday, and enjoy the homeschooling and the good weather we have, and stay safe. Love you.